Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Steve Walter. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about color harmonies. It's time for a Tuesday Tips. So I haven't done a Tuesday tip here on YouTube for a while, and this one was actually by request because a few people asked me about this image that I retouched for a friend, Kate, and this guy that I met, Tom, online. Tom actually took the photo, and Kate reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you want to edit one of the images from this set that we took?" And obviously, I double checked with Tom. You know, Kate isn't just asking people to retouch images. But Tom was cool with it, and I said, yeah, sure, I think that would be kind of cool. So I posted this image, and I got some feedback of people asking, well, how did you do it? Because I shared a bit of the process online. If you check my Instagram, at Steve Walter Photo, you'll see the image that I posted. But here I have the image in its finalized composite, and you can see here we are in Photoshop, and there's quite a few layers involved with this stuff. It looks a little daunting, but all of these have their own sort of necessity. And I thought maybe I just might go through some of it, maybe not all of it. Let's just first start with the original shot. So this image, and actually if you flip it over, so if you flip it horizontally, that was the original image. But what I did was I flipped it into this orientation to match the background that I found that I liked. But looking at this image as a base, you can see where the main light is coming from. Now this was overall, it looks like, you know, maybe a little bit later in the day or just a bit more of an overcast day, because the light on her face and just overall the whole scene is pretty soft and even, but it looks like the main light, the sun, is coming from the right hand side, or at least that's the brightest part of the sky. Maybe a little bit of the right hand, maybe just behind. And I'm also noticing that because I'm looking at the tops of the specular highlights on the cars, and it looks like it's from a little bit above and to the right. There's definitely a little bit going on here on her right shoulder, but it does look like it is stronger from the right hand side. So knowing that, I wanted to make sure that I was complementing that. So that's why I flipped this image. And the background image that I found, right, was this city image. It was actually an image by Josh Couch, and that's from a website called Unsplash. If you're not familiar, Unsplash is a royalty-free sort of stock photo site where anyone can upload any picture and anyone can use it for any reason. I know, it sounds crazy, right? But that's what Josh did, and you don't even have to give him credit. I wouldn't even have to give him credit, but I want to give him credit because I use this image, and I wasn't really profiting from this, so I don't think I would use this website if I knew I was using it for commercial purposes. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. So I found this background image, and what I needed to do was start, let me go ahead and turn some of these off here so I can kind of give you a little bit more of a build-up. There we go. That's probably going to look a little bit, there we go. And even this sky we can turn off here too. So this was the shot, and I saw where the main light source was coming from, right? The right-hand side. So that's why I needed to make sure that I had her flipped. Now, could I have flipped this image the other way? Yes, but then some of the text, if it showed up, I wasn't really quite sure. If the text showed up, it would be reversed. So that's why I did what I did. And I wanted to add in some texture into the sky. So you can see I added this this pale blue, and then I just took some cloud shots that I had and just, you know, set that to a soft light blend mode to just blend in with the sky, just so that I had some texture there in the background. And then we make sure our subject is added. But if you look at this initially, it doesn't quite match in the scene. And even if I turn this off too, you can start to see that the image that originally was captured was very cold in nature. So I needed to warm that up. I also modified some of the blues, right? So you can see the blues in the suit and even the shadow area. I moved that over a little bit more to a teal space. We definitely did some dodging and burning here. You can see a before and after on that. And this rim light. So knowing that there was this strong source of light coming from the side, I wanted to really emphasize that on her hair and on the ledge. So I went ahead and added in this rim light here. And also knowing that what I needed to do was make sure that I had a much stronger shadow source, right? Because if I just left it alone like this, it looks a little too even. So what I'm doing is I'm adding a little bit more direction to this shot. Because the image overall was pretty fairly even, I then had the option to start to add some direction to it. And that's why I thought the background would work nicely. So I went ahead and added that. Also, I needed to darken the heck out of this wall because this was the original wall. And so what I did was I just made a selection and a curves layer here and just reduced the exposure so that it was darker. And again, adding direction to my light source. So those were some of the things that I I did to the subject here, along with, a little bit of retouching, things like that. But then what I needed to do was really add in some of that sun with this. And all this is this is just a gradient fill adjustment layer set to diamond. And, we've got a nice warm tone in here. And I just scaled it and positioned it until I felt like it worked and fit in with the scene. And then we have some curves, right, to add a little bit of contrast back into the scene so that now this is overall feeling like it's a cohesive space, right? That she could potentially be on that ledge with the strong light source coming from this direction, and everything is about the same warmth in tone. And then what I did was I added this color balance. So looking at this color balance, you might say, well, why did you use those colors, Steve? Why did you specifically do what you did there? And you can see here in the color balance, in my midtones, I modified my yellows a little bit here. Shadows, I went ahead and really added in some magenta and blue, so basically purple. And in the highlights, you can see we added in some yellow there too. So I had a conscious thought into that because I looked at this image and I said to myself, okay, before I do anything, what is the primary color that stands out to me here? And in this case, when I look at this image, it was the red. It was really this red area here in her glove. Let me go ahead and select a layer so that I can sample. So it was this red here in her glove. I mean, obviously in the boot and on her stomach, the suit overall, but the red to me was the color that jumped out. So I said, okay, well, let me use that as a foundation of sort of my starting point. And then let me find colors that are surrounding that, right? I have yellows, I have oranges, and I have blues. So what I did was I used a website called Adobe Color. If you're not familiar, it looks like this, and it's color.adobe.com. And this is a great tool because when you're thinking about creating any kind of edit or any kind of color grade, and that's how I would really think about this is before I graded it, and then this would be the after, whether it be in photo or video, right? You want to do a color grade or some stylized color. I did that with intention because I said to myself, okay, well, I need to get these colors to all work together, to make this scene all work together. And I knew that I had reds, yellows, and oranges, right? And then my immediate thought is, okay, well, I need some cool tones to balance that. But then it's, okay, well, what exact cool tones? So when I come over here, you can see that using the Analogous color harmony, and there's a bunch of different types of color harmonies. The most common is complementary, maybe even a triad, but complementary is probably your first go-to where you're using opposing colors. But here, Analogous, what this does is it lets you set your sort of base color. And that's what I did was I said, okay, my red is my primary color in this shot. And then I need to get colors that are in that image that support it. So here you can see I have an orange and I have a yellow. And if I drag these around, you can see how Analogous works, is that it basically has things sort of evenly spaced out in an intentional way. So if I start dragging these here over to the greens, you can see this would be my color harmony. But there were no greens in the shot. So if I start pulling it back over here, you can see now I had all of those images or all of those colors in the image except for this purple. So I said to myself, okay, Steve, you need to add purple. Well, where can you logically add purple? And you can see what I did was I actually added that down here to the brick. And I want to see if I can find that right over here. Here it is. So I made a mask, right, just down here, a really soft edge mask. And I believe I targeted the blues over here, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, I targeted the blues that already existed in there. And I just shifted them over into the magenta purple space. So that before I did that, I think this still works, right? It still is okay, especially because I added so much of that purple in the color balance layer, right? So you can see I really took those blues to purples in the shadow tones. But then what I wanted to do is push it a little bit more into that purple space because of that intentional use of this color harmony. And then these are the colors that, they're a little bit desaturated, but this is basically the color harmony that I used. And to me, that's what really made this image work very well. And again, with intention. I didn't just sort of accidentally happen upon these colors. I looked at the colors that were in my scene and I said, okay, do I like those colors? And the answer was yes. And then I said, okay, well, how can I further emphasize or complement those colors? And that was by using the Analogous color harmony. So that is a bit of a breakdown here of this overall image. And again, not to necessarily go through layer by layer by layer on something like this, but really just to kind of walk you through my process of saying, okay, here was this original image. What are the things that I really like about it? The subject and the ledge that she's on, I think, is a great foundation to build a composite. And that's what I did, was then I found a background that I thought would work. And the tricky thing about the background is that you need to make sure you find something that has somewhat matching perspective. It needs to be somewhat close enough where it's believable, because there were some shots that I looked at that were either too high up or too low down, where your perspective just wouldn't work. Your leading lines or your horizons just wouldn't match. So that's why I picked this background, and I thought it worked very well, and I liked the base for it already, and I just kind of worked with that overall so that it made sense. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that was informative. If you guys have thoughts, comments, feedback on whether it be composite work or just retouching in general or just anything, again, this Tuesday tip was created out of a question, someone's request. So I'm happy to do that stuff. So if you guys have that in the future, let me know. See you next week.